Hi all, today we're going to discuss the section H of the first chapter of Baronett's logic. This section is about the reconstruction of arguments. Antonyms are arguments with missing parts. People take shortcuts to write and speak, and they leave out what they think is already understood in the context. The definition of an antonym is an argument with a missing premise, a missing conclusion, or both. It comes from an antimos, from the ancient Greek, that literally means to keep in the mind. For example, the novel I just bought is by Julie Price, so I'm sure I'm going to like it. The reconstruction of this argument is the following. The novel I just bought is by Julie Price, and the missing premise was I like every novel of hers that I have read so far, so I'm sure I'm going to like it. Brackets mark information that was not part of the original information. Antonyms are context-driven. Recognition and reconstruction depend on the setting of what is written or said. Sometimes we must supply information we may not know firsthand. For example, I have a Cadillac, therefore I don't have to spend much on maintenance. This assumes that Cadillacs require very little maintenance. There can also be missing conclusions. This is used usually in advertisement. Advertisers count on you to fill in the blank. For example, bank lends money. We are a bank. The billboard never states its conclusion. Readers supply it themselves. The conclusion is we lend money. Some ads say very little but imply a lot. The visual leads you to fill in. For example, if I buy this product, then I will experience what is being depicted. A missing conclusion can be more persuasive than a stated one, because the audience feels it reached the conclusion on its own. There's a key point here. What we choose to supply as a missing premise or conclusion can affect the subsequent evaluation of the argument. Why does the reconstruction that we do of argument matters? For example, Bill Gateway is rich. It follows that he cheats on his taxes. We can do a reconstruction as a deductive argument. The missing premise will be all rich people cheat on their taxes. This is a valid deductive argument if we assume the premises are true. But the added premise is false if even one rich person doesn't cheat. So the argument is valid but probably unsound. A second way of reconstructing this argument is as an inductive argument. The missing premise will be most rich people cheat on their taxes. This will be a strong argument if we assume the premises are true. Now, is it a cogent or uncogent argument? That depends on objective evidence, for example, IRS audit data, not on our feelings about the claim. Back terms must be stipulated for analysis. Rich equals income over $250,000 per year. Most equals at least 70%. You should apply both tests. Logical analysis, is the deductive argument valid? Is the inductive argument strong? And truth value analysis, are the premises true? We should apply the principle of charity when we reconstruct arguments. This principle states that we should choose the reconstructed argument that gives the benefit of the doubt to a person presenting the argument. In the example that we analyzed in the previous slide, for Bill Gateway, the inductive reconstruction most is the better choice. The deductive version saddles the speaker with an almost certainly false premise. The principle is based on a sense of fairness and an open mind. Since we expect other people to interpret and analyze our argument in the most reasonable way, we should do the same for them. Interpretation must be justified. The more we know about the context, the setting, the people, the issues, the more accurate our reconstruction is. When we add premises, we should take into account validity and soundness. An added premise must do two jobs: support the conclusion regarding logical analysis and be true regarding truth-value analysis. For example, Frank committed a murder. Therefore, Frank committed a felony. As it is stated, the argument is invalid. So we add the following premise: every murder is a felony. This makes the argument valid and the premise is true. So the argument is sound. Now let's analyze the second example. Frank committed a felony, therefore Frank committed a murder. If we add every felony is a murder, this makes the argument valid. But the premise is false. Selling illegal drugs, for example, is also a felony. So the argument is unsound because the premise that we added is false. This is a one-way street. Adding premises can turn an invalid argument into a valid one, as we did it in the first example. But no added premise can ever make a valid argument invalid. The original premises already guarantee the conclusion. There are also rhetorical questions. These questions are a statement disguised in the form of a question. For example, you have not saved any money. You have only a part-time job, and at your age, car insurance will cost you at least $2,000 a year. Do you really think you can afford a car? The question asserts a conclusion. If we reconstruct this conclusion as a statement, it will be, therefore, you cannot afford a car. There's another example. I do my share of work around this house. Don't I deserve to get something in return? Why shouldn't I be allowed to go to a Weak Notes concert today? Both a premise and the conclusion appear as questions. If we reconstruct this premise and conclusion, it will be the following statement. I deserve to get something in return, thus I should be allowed to go to the concert today. Converted questions go in brackets since we changed the speaker's words into statements. Rhetorical conditionals are a conditional statement used to imply an argument. In a conditional statement, we call the first part antecedent. This is the part that begins with if. And we call the second part consequent. This is the part that begins with then. For example, if you were really serious about losing weight, then you will not be eating that large pepperoni pizza all by yourself. Here, the consequent, the second part of the statement, contains the intended premise. The antecedent, the first part of the statement, contains the intended conclusion. If we reconstruct this as an argument, it will be the following. You are eating that pizza all by yourself. Therefore, you are not really serious about losing weight. The second example is, if you truly care about your children, then why are you neglecting them? The context decides the reconstruction. For example, if the speaker is a concerned friend, we will reconstruct this argument as follows. I know you care about your children, so you have to stop neglecting them. If the speaker, let's say, is a social worker documenting neglect, it will read as follows. You repeatedly neglect your children, therefore you do not truly care for them. Today we learned the following key terms. An antinomy is an argument with missing premises, missing conclusion, or both. You should supply the missing parts in brackets. According to the principle of clarity, choose the reconstruction that gives the benefit of the doubt to the person presenting the argument. Rhetorical language is used when speaking or writing for dramatic effect, implying things that are not explicitly said. In rhetorical language, we find rhetorical questions that are statements disguised in the form of questions, and rhetorical conditionals, that are conditional statements used to imply an argument. Remember to complete the exercises in pages 52 to 55. As I said, remember to complete exercises 2, 8, and 15 of exercises 1H1 and exercises 2H and 15 of exercises 1H2. Submit your answers on Brightspace by tonight at midnight. Also, remember that the first exam of this course will be on Thursday, July 16th, on Brightspace. It will be about the first chapter of the textbook. Have a good rest of the day.